Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make repeating radial gradient stripes. A bullseye, basically, you know, like the symbol for the Target stores. So to do that, it's going to be actually quite easy. I've already got a page set up that is blank, and right here in between my header and my footer, I'm going to go ahead and create a div, class equals bullseye. There we go. We don't even have to put anything inside of that class. And I'm going to go up to my styling. First, let's just give it some characteristics so we can see it. I'll just create a big container. Let's see, how about a width that's 400 pixels and a height that's 400 pixels and a border that's 2 pixels solid and really dark, just so we have that outline there. And let's go ahead and center it in the space. I'll give it a margin of 100 pixels top and bottom, auto margin left and right. So just doing that is going to give us an area to work. Okay, now for the bullseye. We're going to be using repeating radial gradient, making stripes. The weird thing about this is we're going to use background image as the property, and then we put in repeating radial gradient. Notice there's also a repeating linear gradient, which I don't plan to demonstrate here, although it would be pretty easy to do if we want to make just standard straight stripes. I'm going to do a repeating radial gradient, and now this is where it starts to get a little bit weird. First, let's just put in 2 colors so we can see what happens. I'll go ahead and put in gray and yellow green, and that will be enough to get a feel for what repeating radial gradient does. Actually, so far, it just looks like I've got gray in the center, and then that spreads out and goes to green. So we're going to be very specific here. I'm going to start my gray at 0 pixels. Technically, it's not necessary to do that, but I like to put in that 0 pixels there because then it makes a little bit more sense when we put in our other numbers. And then I want the yellow-green, I want that to start at 20 pixels. Let's see what that gets us. Okay, well, we can definitely see something happening here. I can see that the definitely the gray is blending into the green, and then it quickly goes back to gray again. And that's because it's going to finish off there. But I'm going to keep going a little bit further here. And right in between these, I'm going to put gray of 20 pixels. So I go gray to 0 pixels, and then gray to 20 pixels, and then yellow-green to 20 pixels. We're still not done. Let's see what's happening. Oh, that looks like a mess. So let's go ahead and add in something else here. Yellow-green, 40 pixels. There we go. So now we've got our stripes. Basically, the gray is starting at 0 and then going to 20 pixels. The yellow-green is picking up at that 20 pixels and moving into 40 pixels. So we're creating even stripes, and you could adjust some of these numbers in order to make some of the stripes thicker than others. For instance, if that 40 was at 60 pixels, then we'll see that the green stripes are going to be a lot larger than the gray ones. I'm going to jump back to 40 for a moment, and in fact, I'd like to exaggerate something here. In fact, I'll change this to 40, that yellow-green to 40, and I'll change this last yellow-green to 80. So everything's going to be balanced, but the stripes are going to be a lot thicker now. And I'd like to point out, you can probably notice this, especially if I were to zoom in on this page, that I'm getting kind of a jagged edge on there, a little pixelation. There's an actual easy way to avoid that. So my gray starts at 0 and goes to 40. I'm going to start my first yellow-green stripe at 41 pixels. So basically there's going to be a blending of the 40 to the 41. It'll smooth out that jagged edge. And then for my yellow-green, that looks pretty good there. But then I'm going to follow it up with gray, 81 pixels. In fact, I'm not going to put that in yet because I just want you to see the difference here. So the only thing different now is I have yellow-green at 41 instead of 40. And you'll notice that from the gray going to the green, it's actually pretty smooth, but it's the green going to the gray that's still a little bit jagged. That's where I can put in this gray of 81 pixels. And now we're going to get smoother transitions between all of those colored stripes there. Yeah, so that's the basic technique. Not too bad. It looks a little bit weird, but we start off with one color, starting point, stopping point. Then we go to our next color. The starting point is 1 pixel after the stopping point of the previous one, and then we stop that color at some point, and then we go back to the first color 1 pixel afterwards. Now all this works if we did percentages too, but if we did percentages like 0%, 10%, 20%, then my next little blending level would be something like 0.5. For instance, if I went to gray of 20%, I would pick up my yellow-green at 20.5%, just to kind of blend in that smoothness there. Yeah, and that's the basics for radial stripes. Obviously, choose the colors you like, choose the stripe thicknesses that you like, and you've got it. And just so you can see that it really is pretty easy, if this was a linear gradient, we'd have ourselves some stripes, just straight stripes, and of course you could add the angle for those stripes as you prefer. Thanks for hanging out with me.